Hello everyone. Last week we saw three ordinances brought about by the central government regarding reforms it had announced for agriculture sector. Ordinances are laws promulgated by the President of India on the recommendation of the Union Cabinet in times when the Parliament is not in session. They enable the government to take immediate legislative action and have the same effect as an act of the Parliament. If you recall the discussions on the Atmanirbhar Bharat package, there was a constant demand for legislative backing or support to make the announced reforms in the agriculture sector. Following that, three ordinances were brought into force last week, namely the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Ordinance 2020, the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Ordinance 2020, and the Essential Commodities Amendment Ordinance 2020. It is these ordinances that have been discussed today in an editorial in the Economic Times. Let's read to find out more. Build consensus on farm reforms. Drop arbitrary powers in ECA amendment. ECA is Essential Commodities Act of 1955, which has been amended to suit the demands of the current crisis, but there are some arbitrary or random powers that are still present in the act that allows the government to choose at will. Now that may be a scary thing even after many relaxations. This is what has been brought to the reader's attention in this article. Let's read ahead. The reforms the central government seeks to bring about in India's farm sector via the three ordinances the cabinet approved last week are welcome. However, some reservations remain and the government would do well to address them. Quite self-explanatory and in agreement with the subtitle of this article. It is also relevant to note that these reforms will not by themselves quite make milk and honey flow in rural India and will need to be supplemented with reforms to input pricing and significant public investment in farm infrastructure and its linkage to marketing. When milk and honey flows, it hyperbolically describes the place's richness and is used to express abundance. Input pricing refers to the costs that go into producing a good or a service. In agriculture, the cost of the land, labor, seeds, chemicals like insecticides, pesticides and fertilizers, farm equipments like motor pumps, tractors, etc. form input cost. In this part of the paragraph, the editor means that only bringing reforms to the act, amending it, and making one-sided corrections won't help. In addition to the legal provisions, input costs should be reduced. More public investment must go into agriculture, especially in the farm infrastructure area and its linkage to marketing. Please recall, we have discussed farm gate infrastructure. This is what these lines talk about. While the amendment to the Essential Commodities Act removing cereals, pulses, onions, potatoes, oil and oilseeds from its ambit is welcome, the centre's decision to retain the power to reintroduce these items under the act if prices go up unreasonably is ill-advised. This is the government intervention that the editor is worried about. The government, while amending the ECA, chose to retain the powers to choose at will when they can put these agro products back into the list of essential commodities. This prospect of the draconian provisions of the Act kicking in at the government's will would make it difficult for commodity futures to work efficiently. Draconian is excessively harsh and severe. Commodities, is in economics are raw materials. Commodities futures contracts is a financial term for agreements to buy or sell a raw material at a specific date in the future at a particular price. So if the buyers and sellers are uncertain of when the government may choose at its own will to intervene and reintroduce these agro products such as cereals, etc. as enlisted above, it will be difficult to form future contracts as they may fail constantly to materialize, and that's the problem. When the ordinance is converted into law, the government should do well to drop this condition. The Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Ordinance 2020 seeks to free up farm trade across states and within states. This is most welcome as farmers lack marketing freedom because the Agriculture Produce Marketing Committees Acts of most states compel them to sell to a specified set of traders. However, while interstate commerce is a subject in the union list, intrastate trade lies within the ambit of the state government. Since the states stand to lose considerable sums of mandi tax derived from the APMC system, they are guaranteed to protest, cutting across political parties. Their concerns would have to be addressed. Instituting a legal framework for contract farming via the third ordinance is a good idea. However, these contracts are one-sided with no real recourse for the buyer. Bihar has had no APMC for several years, but its farmers are not exactly in clover. Different states call for different kinds of additional inputs, marketing freedom being only a hygiene factor. Supplying these should be a priority too. Recourse is a source of help in a difficult situation. And when something or someone is in clover, they are at ease and in luxury, very comfortable. Hygiene factors are such factors in the work environment of a person which demotivate him by causing dissatisfaction. Very well used here for the ordinances, which will be incomplete without all-round reforms such as reducing input costs, farm gate infrastructure, and relief from draconian provisions of certain acts. So this is it, a critical article aptly analyzing the 3 ordinances related to agricultural reforms under the Atmanirbhar Bharat mission. I hope you understood most of it. Feel free to discuss and come up with questions or doubts if any. This is me signing off for today. You do take care of yourself. Stay in and stay safe.